back down with her?
No, we're not backing down. People have to understand our country on trade has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world, whether it's friend or enemy. Everybody.
Well, the president's standing firm, at least as of this minute, on the tariff plan and upsetting friends and foes alike. Even his own cabinet confused. Here is Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross.
So this is going to happen this week for sure. The way he said it, 25%, 10%.
Whatever his final decision is what will happen.
Meaning this isn't a done deal.
I didn't say that. I just said what he has said, he has said. If he says something different, it'll be something different. If he, for some reason, should change his mind, then it'll change.
I think there's a Dr. Seuss book in there somewhere. Anyway, we're already seeing backlash to what the president said. Electrolux, Europe's largest appliance maker, they're delaying now a $250 million investment in a Tennessee factory. Companies saying the tariff plan would spike up its cost of doing business, just as one example here. And forget about Democrats. Speaker Paul Ryan, his office released the following statement today, quote, "We are extremely worried about the consequences of a trade war and are urging the White House to not advance with this plan." Now, the way the whole thing together is also raising a lot of questions. Right before the announcement, all of Trump's inner circle, including New York's own and top economic advisor Gary Cohn, they were trying to talk Trump out of tariffs. And they thought when they left the room that they succeeded. But then the president walks in another room, meets with steel and aluminum CEOs, and apparently that changed his mind, and then he makes his announcement. Since then, it has been damage control at the White House. Now, just about every country that we do business with, our allies, by the way, they feel just as concerned. Foreign leaders are saying it's unfair, it's unreasonable, and it would trigger a trade war. All concerning stuff, right? Well, the president says he welcomes a trade war, and trade wars are good. I'm not using short language. That's what the president said. He also said, friends, that they're easy to win. I thought Republicans don't like to do these things.
They don't. He must have been talking about something else. I really don't know what to say about it, because the fact of the matter is, if you look at the analysis by people who know more than I do, you're going to lose jobs by virtue of having a trade war, because others will respond. They'll respond in putting tariffs on our stuff that we sell, particularly farmers, for example. We sell our farm all across the world. So trade wars are not, it's not a game. And I don't understand. I have a sense that maybe he'll not do this. That the last person.
I think you might be right, but here's my problem. For what then? What was all this for?
Part of it's NAFTA, I think, Richard. They're negotiating NAFTA right now in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And he wants Canada and Mexico to change. He wants to redo that NAFTA agreement. Now, I don't know all the particulars of it, but there's no reason he does this. I think he does this as part of a process of negotiations. So I'm going to put on this tariff on everything. Well, Mexico and Canada, both our allies, have a lot to lose if he puts the tariffs on, and obviously those it may be a negotiating ploy.
It is, but the problem is when you do blusters, when you're trying to get the city to give you a tax break on a building, that's one thing. The other thing is you have a global marketplace that's going to start to take action. Just for a minute, if somebody wrote on a paper that they handed in, trade wars are good, trade wars are easy to win, I'm assuming that kid's not getting an A.
We'd hope not, because there's very little data to support that. And yet that's what kind of encapsulates this presidency so far, a year in, which is that he will bluster about things of which there's absolutely no data to support what he's saying. I mean, if you're to pretend that making a flip announcement that you're going to increase tariffs in the way that he said flippantly, apparently without talking to anybody, even in his own administration, let alone anybody who might be on the other side, and that's to give you some kind of advantage.
And that was the part, Jeannie, that was stunning. Anybody who watches any of the Sunday shows, this is what usually happens. First of all, usually you don't announce this late in the week on a Thursday or Friday, usually at the beginning of the week, and then you do all the supporting documentation. You have all your surrogates go out there and do it. And then on the Sunday shows, they'll explain why 25% for this, why 10% for that. They'll be able to bring their graphs about all the additional revenues. It'll bring... Nobody
To your
gave
point,
a
yeah.
scintilla of backup. Nobody even said he's going to do it.
Yeah, because there's no evidence to support that this is either a good idea or effective. And I mean, I think the question for the president is, what is it that you're trying to achieve? If, to your point, he's trying to get a negotiating position from which he can make the United States, put the United States in a better position, where's the evidence to suggest that this kind of announcement achieves that? What did it achieve?
And to me,
The
it was
markets
kind of like
dropped.
guns. We talked a lot about it. I thought it was a productive conversation he had that day at that open table with lawmakers of both parties. I think he said a few things, whatever, with the running in the building, barehanded and all that, whatever. But at least we had the dialogue. But it's 3 weeks later. Nobody thinks he's really going to follow through with what the threats and promises. I'll bring it back one more thing, full circle, Scott. Listen, I think you're right, or I think that there is an argument to be made that maybe we could and should get better trade deals, okay? And I think that, by the way, there's a left wing of the Democratic Party that might even be a perverse ally for him on this stuff. But it was so ill thought, there was no strategy to it. And I think he also forgets one thing. Historically, you don't go to war with trade partners. You go to war when you have trade wars. And that is not in national self-interest. And the idea that it could never happen, that just proves no one's a student of history. People don't joke around about these things for a reason.
Well, they don't. And even more so, any foreign policy, in my view anyway, is not done that way. It's not by quips and twitters. Foreign policy is a very carefully managed by people at the table, playing the real game, really doing what has to be done in terms of the give and take. Foreign diplomacy for enemies and for allies alike is a quiet business. It's a business that takes place not with a lot of bravado. It takes place in the back rooms where it has to take place, because otherwise there'd be no deals for anything.
And the diplomacy, to your point, is somebody, you have to lose a little face if you want the other one to win. The idea that he would be able to coordinate some kind of a trade deal where he says, all right, I'm going to raise it on steel, you're going to raise it on me, we'll work it all out. None of that's taking place. There's no backroom negotiations for all of this. They learn like the rest of us. They turned it on a 24-hour news network, and all of a sudden they see the president saying these things. I guarantee you Paul Ryan learned that way. I guarantee you the cabinet of this president learned that way. Think about how
I think
nuts there
Ivanka
is.
learned that. I mean, I think, yes, and you can't do it that way. But remember, his business experience is, let's bring all these developers, all these people I want to do business, we'll throw out these niceties and what have you, and then we'll play tough after. Can't do that in foreign diplomacy.
No, and he likes to stiff them with the bill later on with unpaid work. But, Gene, this just comes full circle to me. This is, after a year now, it's not that it was ever funny, but it's not just, oh my God, it's a reality TV show. This is scary stuff. This has consequences. This could cost American jobs. This will raise costs of goods coming into this country that people can't afford. And for what gain at the end of the day? And I'm just saying, if people think it's just another day in Trump land, it's not. These kind of things are a big deal.
They have huge consequences. Look at the markets, and you look at all the dangers we're facing in the world, none of which have seemed to be seriously addressed by this administration. And you've got to be, if you look at it seriously and objectively, really concerned about what's going on. And this is but one example, sadly, of this president flippantly making statements that have enormous impacts on all of our lives.
We'll never get the answer, but I would have loved if somebody asked, why 25 and 10%? They're round numbers, right? What's the supporting data? Why wasn't it 24% or 26%?
Or 9%.
8, 9, 11? There'd be no answer, because he literally, I think, walked over, sees a microphone, says, let me get two round numbers here. 25 and 10 trade wars, they're good and they're easy to win. That's how off the cuff, I mean, you can't make this up. Anyway, all right, let's get out of Washington. Up next, the Percoco trial in the hands of the jury, and there's a lot of drama in the jury room we're learning. We've got a front row seat. Dominic's report straight ahead.